Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today I'm going to be doing my first impression on Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. It's a game that came out a few days ago. Was a little bit hesitant on picking it up, but in the end I gave in to my ARPG craving, and I've actually been enjoying it quite a bit now. ARPG is a genre that I do quite enjoy, and the one that I'm looking out for the most is Lost Ark coming to the EU, but since it seems like that could still take quite some time, I decided to try out Wolcen and give it a go. Now, as of the making of this video, I've put in about 5 hours or so, and I just started on Act 2. There is 3 acts in total when it comes to the story, and then there is also some pretty decent endgame, at least I've heard. Now, the main issue with the game at the moment is that there is a lot of bugs. When it came out of early access, the multiplayer didn't really work. Like, out of all of the days that it's been live so far, I think for the first 3 days or something, multiplayer didn't even work in the first place. And the main issue I had with that is not necessarily that it didn't work, but the fact that your character can't be on both a multiplayer world as well as a single player world. So if you make a online character, that character is only for the online experience, and then if you want to play offline mode, when for example the servers are down, you need a different character, so you can't play just online or offline. You do need to make a choice in between the two when you make your first character. Normally in any scenario, the best thing you could do is just make an online character, and then when the servers were down, you'd play it offline, and then stuff like that. But yeah, anyways, so there are a lot of bugs at the moment. I haven't really encountered many myself. So far it's been a pretty smooth experience, some little hitching here or there, or a skill that gets me out of bounds or something like that. But for the most part I've been pretty lucky with not really encountering any bugs so far outside of that out of bounds one. But that got fixed really quickly as well by just using the skill again, and it got me back into the map. So haven't really had too many issues with that. Now when it comes to the actual game, how it works, the mechanics behind it, the progression, that kind of stuff, I have to say that I have been pretty impressed. It feels really good to play. The way that you build your character is very unique as well, in the sense that it is classless progression, so you can basically pick up whichever class you want at the start of the game, and you can literally change it the next 10 minutes into whatever you want it to be. Do you want to be a rogue, an archer, a mage, a berserker, a tank, whatever? It doesn't matter what you want to pick, you can be whatever you want to be, even if you've already beaten the game or when you're halfway through the story or something like that. For example, yesterday evening I was fighting the final boss of Act 1, which is a very tough boss actually, and I just found that I did not have enough movement in order to beat him. The combat is relatively fast in this game, so you do have a dodge button which has, I believe it's like 4 or 5 charges, but it does take some time for you to get those charges back. And so when the boss is doing a lot of attacks very fast back to back, but you constantly have to dodge out of, because if you get hit by them you could lose half of your HP, and some skills even could one-shot you potentially. You do have to be dodging constantly, and of course it's not just the boss, there's also ants and stuff like that. So me only having the dodge roll as my movement ability was not enough. So what I did was, I went back into a previous dungeon, I just ran around looking for chests, looting corpses, trying to kill enemies and stuff like that until I found the gun, and then when I used the gun, I equipped the gun together with a catalyst. I could still use all of my magic because I mainly am playing a caster at the moment. But because I was using the gun, I now also have access to a bunch of the rogue skills, and the one that I mainly was interested in was the dodge roll. So I took a skill that would place down a bomb and make me backstep for quite a distance. So now instead of only having the dodge roll, I also had this backstep move for mobility, and then it took me one more try and I was able to kill the boss. So it's really cool how you can just adjust your build on the fly. Not just your build when it comes to your skills, but also your passives. You can completely refund your normal passives, which is a very simple, just put points into a certain stat one. But you also have a system called the Gate of Fates, which is a gigantic skill tree. This really reminds me of Path of Exile. I didn't really play it too much, but from the little bit that I did play Path of Exile, this kind of feels familiar to that. But the way it works is really cool as well. So when you start out at the beginning, you choose out of like 3 main branches, which is mainly caster, melee, or ranger, or like a rogue ninja kind of thing. And then once you go into the second ring, you get to choose 2 main paths. Like for example, when it comes to the caster, I could go for a full-on raw damage kind of build, or I could go for a more damage over time ailment kind of build. And depending on which one you want, you rotate the ring around. And then on the third ring, the outer ring, you get to choose an even further specialization, which right now I am going for some kind of an elemental build, where depending on the elemental type of skill that I'm using, it can proc extra status effects or additional effects. Like for example, when I use my fireballs, there is a chance that a meteor will come raining down on my enemies or something like that. So there's really cool things that you can do. There's some really in-depth stuff that you can do with this whole skill tree as well. And the beautiful thing about it is that when you're not happy with how your build turned out, or you want to try something different, say for example I get to end game, I play caster a little bit, but I'm like, well, it's not really that fun, I can just refund all of the skills, grab a new weapon, grab some new gear, and all of a sudden be a berserker or a knight or whatever I want to be, because all you have to do is switch out your weapons, and then you basically get access to new skills, because there are no classes in this game. The way how you get your skills and the way how you can use them all depends on what you find in the world and what weapons you are using. So for example, if I want to wield magic, I need either a staff or I need a catalyst. The staff is a two-handed weapon, the catalyst is a one-handed weapon, so meaning that if I want to dual wield stuff, like I did for example for that boss fight, I would use a catalyst, and then in my other hand I would use whatever else I wanted to use. For example, if I wanted to have access to those rogue skills, I would use a gun. If I wanted to have access to berserker skills, I would use a battle axe, like a one-handed battle axe, because there's also a two-handed battle axe. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do and experiment with, which is why this game has so many different options. And since you can switch on the fly, I think it is incredibly fun, because you can just adjust to certain fights, to what you want to take. And not only that, but reallocating your skill points when it comes to the way your skills work is also completely free and very fast to do as well. When we're looking at our passives and our Gate of Fates, that does cost a currency in order to refund those skill points, but when it comes to your actual actions, those things you can just reallocate as you want. It's as simple as clicking the button of I don't want this passive on this anymore, I'm going to put it into something else. And then of course your skills also need to be leveled. You can do this by either just using them in the world, in combat, any combat really, or you can just level them up at the skill vendor. When it comes to acquiring skills, it is kind of RNG as well, because you can buy some of them from the vendor, but others you can just find out in the world. Like in the gameplay that you're seeing in the background, you're gonna see me pick up quite a few spells. I believe they're called Anoracts or something like that. But basically it's a little skill icon, and when you click it, you just unlock the skill, and then you can just put it on your hotbar and you can go from there. For example, the Flash Golem that you see me using, I don't think that's the exact name of it. Basically the big summon that I have is one that I just randomly found in the world, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna use this, because the skill that was on my number 4 on my hotbar I wasn't really using much, so I was like, let's just put that on there for some passive extra damage. And I quite like the Golem, so I'm gonna probably keep using that for a little while, because it's nice to tank damage for me, because I'm not super mobile as a mage, and it also does some pretty decent damage, so why not use it? And then of course, like the way the skills work, you can also change certain properties of them. For example, when it comes to my fire skill, like the one where I shoot fireballs, I can either just make it so that the fire spell itself does a bunch of damage, so like up the damage of the normal fire damage, but I can also choose to go for more an ailment status, like for example if I chose that second path that I could have done, where I'm not choosing raw damage but like damage over time ailment status thing, then I could spec my skill itself to go for a more ailment and status build, where it builds up a burn effect on the enemy and does damage over time. So there's a bunch of cool stuff that you can do with that. Not only that, but you can also change the element of certain skills as well. Now, of course, I don't know how it exactly works for other skills, because I've mainly been playing mage so far. But for that fire spell, again specifically, I could, for example, change it into electric damage. And then that one skill point that I took on the Gate of Fates, which does certain procs and stuff depending on what element that you're using, you might want to change some stuff around and stuff like that, to have maybe all of your fire skills turn into ice because you want that ice effect, or you want that frost effect or something like that. Or maybe you go towards the status ailment build, where you're going to be freezing enemies constantly and be a control mage or something like that, rather than a full destruction force mage, something like that. So I think currently Wolcen is a really cool game. Yes, there are still a lot of issues when it comes to bugs, people's progress being reset. There is also a huge exploit when it comes to endgame, where you can just get infinite loot basically. So the game is perfect right now. Yes, there are a lot of bugs. I'd still be a little bit careful if you decide to buy the game or something like that. But I would recommend you to just keep an eye out on their Twitter or follow their forums, something like that, because they are working really hard to try and fix all of the bugs that are currently in the game. But from what I have played so far, I have to say I've been pretty impressed. The game looks fantastic, it feels good to play. I also completely forgot to mention that there is a god farm that you can go into once you've built up enough gauge for that as well, which I'll show some gameplay of that as well. But it just feels really good. Yes, the combat can feel a little bit clunky at times, but for the most part it's a pretty fluent experience. It's a very fast-paced game, it has a ton of customization in it, and if you just look past the bugs, I think that this game can grow out to be something that is going to be a very fun experience. It's definitely something that I'm going to keep playing until Lost Ark finally does come to the West. Yes, the Russian release is there, but most of my friends don't want to play it until it comes to an actual EU release. And then of course people in America and stuff will have a lot of ping for that. So I think Wolcen, once they finally do fix their servers, once they do finally address most of the bugs that the game has so far, I think this could be a really cool one and should bring for a pretty fun co-op experience as well. But that's pretty much going to be it for me. Those are my first impressions. Maybe once I am done with the game and have done some endgame and stuff, I'll make a follow-up video to this where we take a good in-depth look at the game itself. But that will probably have to wait for quite a while, since tomorrow 5.2 is coming out for Final Fantasy XIV, so I'm going to be spending the next few days / weeks playing that quite a bit together with my raid team and stuff like that. But that's gonna be it for me, that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you wanna check out Wolcen, I'll leave a link down in the description, so you can go and check it out on Steam. I think it's a really good game. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one.